everyone to segment 4 of accident and sickness. So in this segment, we will be looking at the different types of policies. Now, with accident and sickness, there's a lot of different types of policies that can be issued. And in another segment, we'll be looking at even the definition of disability can differ. And all of these things impact how much the premium is going to be and how it will sort of come into effect. So when we're looking at the types of policies, there's a number of different types of policies. The first 3 are the most common that we see for exam purposes. So I will go into detail for more of those. And then we have 2 more, which I will explain as well in terms of what they are and how they work. All right, so cancelable is the first type of policy that someone can have. And this is the most cheapest when we're looking at cost-wise type of policy, and you'll see exactly why it's so cheap. So here, with the cancelable policy, the insurance company has all the power. What do we mean by that? That means that they have all the rights to sort of do whatever they want with that policy. They have the right to cancel without any sort of reason. So let's say that, and all they have to do in order to do any of these things is give a 30-day written notice. So even if you've been paying your premiums and always been on time, they can still send you a letter and saying effective this date, this policy will no longer be valid, right? So they have the right to cancel the policy, which is why the title is also called cancelable. They have a right to increase your premium. So they can say following this 30-day notice, your premium will increase by 10%, by 15%. So they can increase your premium. They can also increase your waiting period. So let's say you have selected your waiting period to be 4 months because that's how many savings you have and that's how much you can comfortably get by. That period can increase to 6 months, 7 months, or whatever, right? So they have that power to do all of that. Now, that's why obviously it is the cheapest plan out of all of them. But if you have no power and you have no sort of say in this policy, why would somebody get this kind of policy? Usually, it's not really much by choice. It's usually for the blue collar workers, for those people who maybe sometimes cannot even get a disability policy otherwise. Maybe somebody who's working, like I said, construction or some other type of field that's considered very risky. So there are different classes of occupation, especially with disability policies. Your premium can be hugely different depending on what you do, right? So somebody from the same age, same health, same everything else, but if one is working in an office setting and one is working, let's say as a construction worker, their premiums would be very different and their policy would be very different. So everything would be different, right? So same thing here. It's not usually by choice. It's usually for those individuals who cannot be insured otherwise, they would be getting this type of policy, the cancelable policy. All right. The second policy that we're going to look at is called guaranteed renewable. Now, guaranteed renewable and cancelable are very similar to one another. Only difference is that, just as it states, guaranteed renewable has to be renewed. So insurance company can still increase the premium. They can still increase their waiting period. All they cannot do is they cannot cancel this policy. So they can't cancel it. They're guaranteed to renew it, right? So they can increase the premium by 30%, but they still have to renew the policy. Then it's your choice if you can afford it or not, but the policy cannot be canceled. Unlike with cancelable, that can be canceled right away. So when we're looking at cost-wise, it usually goes down in this order from 1 to 3. These are a little bit different. We'll get to those. But this is the cheapest. This one kind of falls in the middle when we're looking at cost, and this would be your most expensive type of policy, right? So everything else is the same. Only thing is that they cannot cancel. An important thing to remember is you can guarantee to renew until age 65. Insurance companies and disabilities policies usually stop after that age. So disability policies do not continue past that age anyway. So 60, 65, some maybe 70, but they stop after that, right? So it's not something that you can have this policy until like whatever age you like. So that's an important thing to remember as well. And then the last type of policy that we're going to be talking about today, sorry, not last, we have two more, but in detail, is the non-cancelable policy. Now, this is the most expensive product. So most expensive, and you'll see why. So with the cancelable policy, you have all the power, right? So unlike with, sorry, not cancelable, with the non-cancelable policy, you have all the power. Unlike with cancelable, there's no power for the individual. All the power is given to the insurance company. With a non-cancelable policy, insurance company is taking all the risk. That means that they can't do anything. And whatever decision has to be made is up to the client to make, right? So they cannot change anything. They cannot cancel. They cannot increase your premium. They cannot increase your waiting period, nothing. All right. And because of that, because the insurance company is taking on so much risk, this is not offered to everyone. This is for those high-end professionals. We go back to that white collar sort of, there's a lot of discrimination when we're looking at disability policies in terms of what type of occupation you do, right? So there's that discrimination we see based on if you're working in an office, in a safer environment versus if you're working somewhere with your hands, maybe in a more open, hazardous environment, right? So the plans would be very, very different. An insurance company is justified to kind of do that because they're taking on a risk. So the more risk they take on, the higher your premium is going to be. So for this one, it's offered to the high-end professionals, so those who are in an office setting, and maybe an insurance company deems them less risky or less hazardous occupants. It's offered to those, right? So it gives the high sort of protection. The next one is called guaranteed issue. And this one is that the insurance company is saying that we're guaranteeing that you're going to issue you something. We don't know what it is yet, right? So it's not really laid out that clearly at this point. They're just guaranteeing you that they will issue you something up to a certain amount. So this is more for group insurance. That's why I've kind of just separated here. So this is more for group insurance type of products where they're guaranteeing that they will issue you something, and they're just unsure of what it is. And then the last one, guaranteed to issue. The insurance company is saying that we are going to guarantee that this policy will be issued, but we may make some changes. For example, they may take out some people from that group plan, or make some sort of other changes before they issue and before they sort of get back to the employer with the plan, right? So they're just going to, so these two apply more for when we're looking at sort of group plans. So it would kind of fit into that. All right, now these are the different types of policies you can have. And of course, they're not going to be offered equally to everyone, depending on their occupation. You may not even have an option to go with non-cancelable. So it does vary individual, and based on what sort of their individual lifestyle is, their individual occupation is, it will differ. All right, so in the next segment, we'll continue on, but make sure you guys do review this. There's always questions on the exam as well for the different types of policies. And usually how they come up is they will describe the plan to you and ask you which type of plan they have. So they will say, so-and-so, got their policy, they got their premiums were increased, or their waiting premium, a plan was increased. What kind of policy do they have? And then you have to figure out which one, right? So we want to know what the characteristics of each one is. So it's easy to sort of determine that. All right, thank you so much for joining, and then we'll continue again in our next segment.